The secret that died with Mama Cass. She carried it to her grave. For years, nobody knew who fathered her child. Not the press, not her fans, not even her closest friends. And when the truth finally emerged decades later, revealed by the very woman who had once broken her heart, it sent shockwaves through the music world. But that secret was just one piece of a much larger, more heartbreaking puzzle. The girl who was destined for greatness. Baltimore, September 1941. Ellen Naomi Cohen entered a world that wasn't quite ready for her. Born to Russian Jewish immigrants who struggled to make ends meet, she possessed something that poverty couldn't touch. An absolutely radiant personality and a voice that could stop you in your tracks. But there was something else. Something that would haunt her every single day of her life. Even as a young girl, Ellen struggled with her weight. In the 1950s, when Audrey Hepburn's waif-thin frame defined beauty, Ellen felt like she didn't stand a chance. High school became her refuge. Theater became her salvation. And in those bright lights, she discovered something powerful. She could transform. She created an alter ego. Cass Elliot. The name came from actress Peggy Cass and a friend who had passed away. This new identity gave her armor, gave her courage. And what did she do with that courage? Something absolutely audacious. She dropped out of high school and moved to New York City to conquer Broadway. When dreams collide with reality. Now, imagine being a teenager, arriving in the most competitive city in the world, armed with nothing but talent and determination. Cass auditioned for role after role. And then came the crushing blow. She lost a part to an unknown actress named Barbra Streisand. Yes, that Barbra Streisand. Broadway had rejected her. But Cass wasn't the type to give up. If theater wouldn't have her, music would, or so she thought. Between 1962 and 64, she formed two bands, the Big Three, and later, the Mugwumps. And it was with the Mugwumps that she met him. Denny Doherty, the man she would love with every fiber of her being, the man who would never love her back. But here's where the story takes its first twisted turn. Even though Cass was desperately in love with Doherty, she ended up marrying someone else entirely. In 1963, she married her guitarist, James Hendrix. But this wasn't a love story. This was a business arrangement, a way to help Hendrix avoid the draft, a marriage in name only. When the Mugwumps split after just 8 months, Cass struck out on her own, hoping Doherty would follow. He didn't. Instead, he joined a band called The New Journeymen, led by the husband and wife duo John and Michelle Phillips. And that's when Cass's real struggle began. The cruelest rejection. Cass was willing to do anything, absolutely anything, to join The New Journeymen. She knew Doherty saw her talent. He couldn't deny her voice was the missing ingredient. But John Phillips? He refused to let her in. Publicly, Phillips claimed her voice was too deep for his arrangements. But behind closed doors, he sang a very different tune. The real reason was brutal, crushing, and all too common in that era. He thought she was too fat. Let that sink in for a moment. Here was a woman with one of the most powerful, distinctive voices in American music, and she was being rejected not for her talent, but for her appearance. Despite the repeated rejections, Cass did something that seems almost unbelievable now. According to Michelle Phillips, Cass followed the band everywhere. And what did they do? They treated her worse than a groupie. They ordered her around, made her serve them drinks. They even let her rehearse with them, dangling hope in front of her like a carrot, only to refuse to let her perform. It was psychological torture, pure and simple. But then, fortune's wheel turned. The tables turned. The New Journeymen had a problem. They loved partying more than they loved responsibility. They spent money on substances faster than they could earn it. Eventually, they ran out of cash entirely. And when they needed a place to stay, there was only one person they knew would take them in: Cass. Desperate and homeless, they showed up at her Los Angeles doorstep. And Cass, seeing her opportunity, made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Want a roof over your heads? Let me in the band. John Phillips had no choice. Accept Cass or sleep on the streets. Now, for years, the official story was completely different. According to this version, Cass had accompanied the band to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. While walking under a construction site, a pipe fell on her head, knocking her unconscious. When she woke up, miraculously, she could sing in the higher register Phillips had been demanding. Sounds like Hollywood fiction, doesn't it? Because it was. Decades later, sources close to the band revealed the truth. Phillips didn't want fans knowing he'd essentially fat-shamed Cass out of joining. So they invented the pipe story, a convenient fairy tale to cover up an embarrassing truth. Mama Cass is born. Whatever the real story, Cass was finally in. After some late-night creative inspiration, they renamed themselves the Mamas and the Papas. And then, magic happened. With Cass's vocals, the band recorded massive hits. California Dreaming, Monday, Monday. Songs that would define a generation. Songs that still play on radio stations today, more than 50 years later. But success didn't stop the cruelty. If anything, it got worse. John and Michelle Phillips, along with Doherty, openly mocked Cass's weight in their own lyrics. In their hit song, Creek Alley, they wrote, "No one's getting fat except Mama Cass." Imagine that. Your colleagues, your bandmates, people you see every single day, publicly humiliating you in a song heard by millions. The nickname Mama Cass stuck, and while fans loved it, for Cass it was a constant reminder of how she was perceived. And then came the ultimate betrayal, the affair that broke her heart. Remember Denny Doherty, the man Cass joined the band for? The man she loved with all her heart? He was having an affair with Michelle Phillips. When Doherty finally told Cass about the affair, she was devastated, shattered. She confronted Michelle with words that still echo with pain. "You can have any man in the world. Why take the one man I love?" Even after learning about the affair, Cass held on to hope. Years later, Doherty revealed that one night, Cass proposed to him. But he'd been too intoxicated to answer. She never got her response. Cass buried her pain in music and substances, leading to behavior that would eventually land her in serious trouble. The London incident. In 1967, Cass traveled to London ahead of her bandmates for a scheduled performance. But before long, she found herself detained by local authorities. The official charge? Stealing bed linens from her apartment. But rumors suggested they wanted her for something far more serious. One of Cass's alleged lovers was a man named Pick Dawson. But he wasn't just her lover, he was also, allegedly, her supplier. The authorities wanted to use the charges against Cass to get to Dawson. She spent an entire night behind bars, possibly facing serious charges. However, after appearing before a magistrate, the authorities dropped everything for lack of evidence. Nevertheless, the bad press forced the band to cancel their performance. Her days with the Mamas and the Papas were numbered, breaking free. With nothing but a broken heart and insulting lyrics to show for her time with the band, Cass made a decision. Her solo recording of "Dream a Little Dream of Me" had been a success. It was time to strike out on her own. Shortly after leaving, she landed the gig of a lifetime, Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. A 3-week, 6-figure deal that would establish her as the breakout star from the group. But there was a catch. Actually, there were several. As a solo act, Cass felt even more pressure to lose weight. So she adopted a crash diet that can only be described as dangerous. She fasted 4 days a week for 7 months and lost 100 pounds, 1/3 of her 300-pound frame. The weight came off, but the cost was devastating. In the weeks leading up to her Las Vegas debut, Cass developed acute tonsillitis, hemorrhaging vocal cords, mononucleosis, and a dangerous case of hepatitis. All because of her extreme dieting. She was walking into the biggest performance of her life while her body was shutting down. The night everything fell apart. The crowd at Caesar's Palace was incredible. Sammy Davis Jr., Jimi Hendrix, Mia Farrow. Massive stars turned up to watch Cass's big debut. But thanks to her health conditions, she had barely rehearsed a single lyric. When Cass took the stage, something was terribly wrong. She fumbled through the performance. Her voice, usually so powerful and commanding, was barely audible. She was weak, sick, unprepared. Her contract required 2 shows a night. After a brief rest, she tried again, hoping to salvage something from the disaster. But her voice only got worse. The audience grew restless, then hostile. They began walking out noisily. Caesar's Palace cancelled her contract immediately. When the sun rose on her terrible performances, the media was merciless. Newsweek compared Cass's Vegas debut to the sinking of the Titanic. She fell into a deep depression. But there was one bright spot in her life. One reason to keep going. The secret. Just before signing her Las Vegas contract, Cass had given birth to a healthy baby girl named Owen. Despite all her troubles in love and career, Cass was obsessed with being a good mother. She guarded her daughter fiercely, even firing nannies who grew too close. To protect both her reputation and her child's privacy, she kept the news quiet. More importantly, when the media discovered she had a daughter, Cass absolutely refused to identify the father. The media speculated wildly, but Cass never revealed the truth. She took that secret to her grave, the dark shadow. Throughout her career, Cass hosted legendary Hollywood parties featuring the biggest stars. But there were also some terrible guests. Legend has it that Cass hosted, on at least one occasion, the notorious cult leader Charles Manson and his followers. It's unclear how close she was to Manson, but she was close enough to raise eyebrows. After Manson's horrific massacre at the home of Sharon Tate, John Phillips pointed the finger at Cass. He blamed her for inviting Manson into their circle. He even blamed her for Sharon Tate's brutal death. Thankfully, the authorities disagreed with Phillips's assessment entirely. The struggle continues. After her Las Vegas disaster, Cass's solo career stalled. But she worked steadily, making television appearances and even hosting her own variety specials. The Mama Cass television program and Don't Call Me Mama Anymore. In her heart, though, Cass longed for something more than a middling career. She wanted the one thing that had always eluded her: love. In 1971, she thought she'd found it. She married Donald von Wiedenmann, a journalist and heir to a Bavarian barony. It must have been love at first sight, and divorce at second sight. After just 2 months, the marriage was over. The warning signs. Cass continued her dangerous dieting habits, and by 1974, it was catching up with her. While waiting backstage at the Johnny Carson show, she unexpectedly collapsed. Medical staff rushed her to the hospital, but she waved the incident away as mere exhaustion. "My blood sugar level dropped or something, and I just sort of tipped over," she said. But everything was okay. Everything was fine. She ignored the warning signs. After wrapping up 2 weeks of concerts at the London Palladium, she didn't rest. Instead, she kicked off celebrations at Mick Jagger's 31st birthday party in Chelsea. From there, she went to a brunch hosted by Georgia Brown in her honor. But everyone noticed something was wrong. She was coughing, blowing her nose frequently, having trouble breathing. That evening, she attended another party hosted by American entertainment journalist Jack Martin. Her appearance there left everyone confused and concerned. The final night. Cass was always the life of the party, always. But at Martin's gathering, something was different. Even though everyone commented that she seemed in good spirits, her sickly appearance alarmed everyone. Once again, Cass chalked it up to exhaustion and decided to head home for the night. It would be her final public appearance. Cass returned to an apartment in the affluent Mayfair neighborhood, owned by Harry Nilsson. When she failed to emerge from her room the next day, her secretary became suspicious. When he finally opened her bedroom door, he was devastated. He found her lifeless in her bed. She had died of an apparent heart attack. She was just 32 years old. But predictably, the rumour mill concocted its own version of events. Before long, everyone was viciously reporting that Cass had choked while eating a ham sandwich, an obvious cruel smear against her lifelong struggle with weight. 4 years later, The Who drummer Keith Moon would also die in that same bedroom, also at the age of 32. The secret revealed. After Cass's passing, her daughter Owen went to live with her younger sister, Leah, and the mystery of Owen's father remained unsolved. Until Michelle Phillips, of all people, finally revealed the truth years later. The father was Chuck Day, the second guitarist who played on Monday Monday and California Dreaming. All those years of speculation, all that mystery, and the answer had been there all along, hidden in plain sight. Justice, too late. In October 2022, Cass was given a posthumous and long overdue star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Her family attended, along with friends including Michelle Phillips. In a time when fat phobia was so normalized that people made degrading comments directly to her face in front of millions, Cass struggled more than most to be taken seriously and gain the recognition her talent deserved. When the Mamas and the Papas reunited for their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 1998, they performed California Dreaming. They needed 3 backing singers just to try to make up for Cass's absence. They did not succeed. Because here's what we need to understand. Cass Elliot possessed one of the most powerful, distinctive voices in the history of American popular music. Her voice could fill stadiums. Her presence could command any stage. Her talent was undeniable, irreplaceable, legendary. But she lived in a world that judged her appearance before it heard her voice. A world that mocked her weight in song lyrics. A world that made her feel she had to nearly destroy herself to be accepted. She loved a man who would never love her back. She sacrificed her health for a career that never gave her the recognition she deserved during her lifetime. She kept secrets to protect the people she loved. And in the end, even her death became another opportunity for the world to mock her weight with a cruel, fabricated story about a ham sandwich. Cass Elliot deserved better. She deserved to be celebrated for her extraordinary talent. She deserved to be loved for who she was. She deserved to live a long life, to see her daughter grow up, to finally receive the recognition that came too late. Her story isn't just about one talented woman who faced cruelty and prejudice. It's about how we treat people who don't fit society's narrow definition of acceptable. It's about the cost of beauty standards that value appearance over talent. It's about the secrets we keep to protect ourselves and the people we love. And it's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful voices come from the most wounded hearts.